Well, good evening. This is Tenacious Earl. The cover photo of this, by the way, I intentionally tried to make it look like I was talking. It was kind of like a freeze frame, sort of like something like that, just to make it look like I was talking, because I like to be goofy like that. But anyway, how you doing, everybody? It's Wednesday, October 18th, I think. Is that right? Something like that. The days keep going by. And just wanted to give a maybe 5-minute or so update on some things. First off, let's mention the baseball, since this is Tabletop Baseball channel, and I'm sure most of you are most interested in those things related to baseball, etc., etc., of the tabletop variety. I'm sure regular, like real life baseball as well, but I'm not going to go into all that because it'll get me fired up, and I'm not in the mood to get fired up. Well, I kind of am, but not really. So the Super Advanced Phillies replay from 2008. We're going to be moving into the next series, which is, I believe, a 3-game series against the Florida Marlins. Notice I didn't say Miami because back then they were Florida. So I'm just going to confirm that, but it is Florida coming up. I'm getting ready to make sure that all of the players are, So what happens is that I go through and I separate things. I come up with a list of players that I'm going to need. I get that on my phone or on my, what I do is I take a screen cap of the eligible players from Stratomatic PC, the game, because I'm simulating everything on that. So what I do is I'll play the games. They are all set to auto except for Philadelphia's. So what happens is it comes down to I autoplay the day, and then manual. The one will come up for manual play entry, which will be like in this case Philadelphia and Florida. So then I hit OK, let's play it, and then I go in and it'll give me sort of the beginning screen where it shows you the lineups, the starting pitchers, and a couple of other selections. There's a button there for eligibles, and what it does when you bring that up is you can either view the eligibles, or you can actually make some players eligible and get rid of some players. So really what this is good for in my book is being able to determine who is actually on the team at the time of a game. Because when you get a pack of Stratomatic team cards, it's going to have 27 guys plus or minus a couple, plus maybe a couple in the mixed player group. If you buy the additional players, you'll get a few more. But the trouble is they only go, print out those additional players down to maybe 70 plate appearances, 80 plate appearances, 90, somewhere in that range. Depends on the team and how many cards they are. And sometimes I wonder if it's how popular the team is or how good the team is, how likely it is someone's going to want those extra players. So then, from that point, so you have to figure out what that 25-man roster was the day of your game. That's the way I like to do it, because that way I'm not sending a player to the plate when I play this game that wasn't available. To me, that's important. To you, it may not be, but when I did the TBL in the first place last year, I was just going with the basic set, and so all I had was kind of the way the team rounded out the year. And that includes players that got sent down part the way through and stayed the property of the team, but didn't ever come back up. So they got used for most of a season and yada yada. But anyway, so I like to figure out who exactly is on each team, so that way, for that game, so I had the Florida Marlins. I've got their list. I split it up into position players and pitchers, and actually I split the pitchers into starting and relief. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the list, and I'm going to go through and see which players are on there, which players aren't. I'm going to split those off and put them on my discard pile with my starting pitchers, and I pull one starting pitcher off each game, obviously. I have a pile for relief. I have a pile for position players. And then what will happen is if there are any players that are missing, I will go back to Strat PC, pull those players' cards up, which are non-carded players. And so this is the procedure I do. I use the snipping tool in Windows. If you're familiar with it, you can go into your start menu on Windows 7 and later. There's a program called Snipping Tool. What that does is it takes like a screen cap. You take the screen cap of the card. It looks, let's see, I got TJ Bones. It's going to kind of look like this, except straight up instead of mirror image. And what you do is you just hit new, take a new screen cap, and then you box it with your cursor, so your mouse. You click on the upper left, you pull it down to the lower right, and that takes a picture. Now what I'd like to do with those pictures is I put them into a PowerPoint presentation as an image. I just paste it in. Actually, if you hit Control V on a blank PowerPoint, it will put that right on the page. From there, you can right click on the picture, and down the list is size and position. You have to go into that menu, or that it's a dialog box, not a menu. You go into that dialog box. First thing you have to do is you have to unclick lock aspect ratio, because you do not want the aspect ratio that's on the screen. I like to make these exactly like the cards that Strat sends. So what you do is you unclick, like I said, that lock aspect ratio selection, and then you make it 2.75 inches high by 5 inches wide. And that's the dimensions of these cards. You could put 3 on one page if you do what is that, portrait. If you do it in portrait, you could actually cut and paste 3 cards in there. You could actually highlight them all by hitting shift and then selecting each photo with your mouse, because that's what they are photos. They're like JPEGs or PNGs or whatever the heck they are. You could select all of them. You can right click as they're all selected, do what I just told you with the aspect ratio and change the dimensions of them, and they'll all change. You can then line them up on the page, one on top of each other, so 3 in a row. And then from there, what I do is I just print that off, and then I have one of these handy dandy jobbers, and if you line them up right, you can just, you basically cut along the lines, and it cuts those cards out. You don't need to make extra swipes if you make sure that they are like sandwiched on top of each other. So you just want to be careful. Do your best to try not to clip the edges, because you might miss out on your 612 or something like that. So in any event, that's what I end up doing. I go back up to Strat PC and get those cards off of there. And so that's something I have to do with Florida here, is see if there's any missing players. So once I do that, I'm going to play a couple offline games in this. Game 3, Ben desperately needs one of those handy dandy jobbers. It's basically what used to be called, when I was a kid, we used to have what was called a guillotine, which was for cutting paper, and it had this like big arm on it, and the stories of kids losing fingers on the thing, they have like a guard there, but invariably there's going to be one kid who decides that they're going to outsmart the machine and figure out how to lop their finger off. And where I work, Ben had one in his grade. At our work, I won't be working for this company in 2 weeks because we are being sold, but the current company that I work for requires in their safety rules that they have one of those guillotines, and there is a latch on the side that must be engaged whenever it is not being used, because we are all children. But anyway, we have to be treated that way because unfortunately there is the one idiot that could be out there that could hurt themselves. So that is on the level of a 4th grader, as Ben so rightly said, was the age of the kid who decided to cut a little off his index finger or whatever. Then they sue the company because you didn't dot all your I's and cross your T's, or cross your I's and dot your T's, or whatever. And yes, they end up rich, and I end up anyway. let's stop there. I didn't want to get fired up, and I'm starting to kind of like go down this rabbit hole but anyway, it's okay. So that's what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to play a couple games offline. Florida's actually in the lead of the league, which is annoying because Florida's kind of an annoying team. Even with this, I'm sure their attendances are like 1,000 a game. They'd be way ahead, and they'd still be getting nobody to the games. But in any event, they're one of these scrappy teams. They were that way in 2008. Maybe the Phillies will be the ones to set them straight here. Kind of thinking not, because the Phillies have absolutely, in this season, not been able to spank anybody around too much. They seem to underperform based on what they did in real life. So, fun. All right, now to the Tenacious Golf Tour. First off, it was just put on. I was doing a couple little things at lunchtime today for my spreadsheets. I use Google Sheets for all of my figuring. I haven't put any of that stuff out yet, but I intend to. I'm trying to figure out how. If I'm just going to copy and paste it into a Facebook post, or if I'm going to invest in a URL, you know, in a website and this, all that. I don't really want to do that, but maybe I will. So I've been trying to do all this back. I have the schedule in Google Sheets. I have, it compiles the money leaders, the scoring leaders. So here's one thing. I am doing a point system, which is modeled exactly after the, Ben, go ahead. I'll hopefully see it here. I'll bring up the live stream while I'm talking. The point system and the earning structure is based off of the PGA Tour. So all the regular tournaments, the winner gets 500 points, and then it kind of goes down from there. And I do have the window up here. If you ask a question, I will see it after the fact. So just, or not after the video's over, but before I'm done with the video. The majors are 600 points, I believe. I have to go through and see exactly. I have that breakdown. So, in another sheet, but that's the way it's going to work out. So it's pretty much set up to do that, but it was announced on the play.com website. So I was doing this digging. I was like fiddling around with some schedule stuff, and I noticed, I'm like, right there at the bottom of the screen is course pack 11, and it had 4 courses listed there. I'm like, whoa, man! There's the ones I'm looking for. I was waiting for these, and then I'm looking, and they're not the ones I was waiting for. I was hoping for next year's major tournament courses, and I'm hoping they're now going to do a 12, because I've been emailing Keith here occasionally and trying to put my 2 cents in about that so that the major courses are Shinnecock Hills, Carnoustie, and Bellerive. So the courses that they are releasing are all they are all regular tour event courses, which is kind of cool, because you're going to get some courses that I'm going to have some extra courses. I've already started to slot them into the 2019 schedule, and I'll be able to slot in maybe 1 or 2 of them. I'm going to make a change or two to the 2018 schedule. And I'm calling it 2018 because it's the way the PGA Tour does it. They just started their 2018 tour. They start after the Tour Championship. Anyway, it's Golf Club of Houston is one, which is called something Bayou, in the Bayou Greens or Greens Bayou or something. That's the fictional name that Play uses, because they don't have license to the names. They've got PNG National, which is PGA National Golf Course. They have the Greenbrier, which is called I think Springhouse Golf Club, which is up in West Virginia. So that's where I don't know. I've already chosen the name. That's going to be the Appalachian Hootenanny. That's the goofiest name you'll ever hear for a tournament. But top of the list as far as I'm concerned, East Lake. We've got the Tour Championship course. You would have just seen that a couple weeks ago on the PGA Tour rounding it out. So rounding out last year's tour. So that was one I was hoping for. I was hoping for those others. So now there's a fourth one that I'm hoping that if they release a 12, so they haven't released 11 yet. It'll be in a few weeks, I'm sure. I'm hoping that they look to do 12 in the spring, maybe, to lead up to the June U.S. Open, etc., etc. So that means there'll be a fourth slot. And on the Delphi forums, I already put in my my personal request if they look to put out those 3. I think the next one they should just go ahead and do it now, and then they don't have to worry about it for a couple of years, getting to 2020. And that would be Royal Portrush, which is where the British Open will be in 2019. So they could do all 4 of those as sort of a major tournament pack and be done with it. Now, the other thing they could do is, so what is it? I guess next year's probably the Ryder Cup again. So maybe there'll be a Ryder Cup release that they'll want to do. And it's up to them. I mean, it's neat to be able to get 4 courses that will be useful in the tour. I've already, like I said, I was going to expand to 28. All right. Sorry, Ben. Let me see what your question is. Is there a way to speed up the players in the field instead of doing the stack system? Speed up the players in the field instead of doing the stack system. I'm not sure exactly. Maybe you could. I don't know if you're still watching. Maybe you could clarify what you're looking for. If you mean, I think what you could do. Here's one thing you could do. You could use their same kind of system, except do the randomization on the computer. So you could take some dice, you could take your dice in front of your computer. If you had the list of all of your players, which I did for my tour, you know, you could go in there with dice or with just a dice roller on your computer, stack, you know, create random, you know, do a randomization of your field. Use that to put them into stacks of players. You could take the book, roll the die, you know, do the dice roller or roll dice in front of you, and you know, then do a random number generator for each of the piles. I think you could do that. I'm probably not going to do that because I'm sort of, as much as you have to kind of use computers, systems to do all of your compiling the, you know, all the numbers and stuff. I really do enjoy kind of sitting here with those cards. I've thought about doing it, actually. I've thought about actually doing the randomization to make the piles and then coming down here and making the piles. And that way I don't have to worry so much about like shuffling, because shuffling the cards, just because they're not glossy like a playing card, they stick together a little bit, and it's a little bit, yeah, manual. That's what Ben says. The manual way is therapeutic, and I tend to agree with that in a way. But you could also be a bit more exact if you're a little more on the OCD, anal retentive side, whatever you want to call it. You know, if you don't like if you watched my video and you saw that I had like one of those 8 piles had like 10 in it and the other had 6, and that's like, I understand. I'm not trying to like belittle anybody by doing that, but it's like, I think my impression is that some people kind of feel that way when they see like things that aren't appropriate, let's say, aren't the way they're supposed to be. You could do exactly what I was saying, I think, which is come up with your list of 144, or if you want to do like 100 players, you could do 100, you could do whatever. You just randomize them, break them into equal portions, come down, print it out, come down, make sure you get all the cards in the piles that you want, and then do your rolls. I think it'd be great. I think it probably would be just as fun. Heck, it might be just as fun doing all that stuff on the PC. And like I said, you get a dice roller on the PC, and you could just, you know, again, take that list, take each pile and randomize it, and draw the 2 out of there that you need, and you know, take the top two that do the randomization, take the top two numbers that come up or whatever, or the bottom two, you know, depends on how you want to look at it. Most, like in Excel, what the randomization usually does, if you do a random, it usually returns a value between 0 and 1. So sometimes what you would do is multiply it by 100 and round or something like that, and that would get you you still have a chance of, and then you could rank. I don't know. There's ways to do it. I'm not Pete Bosox without going back to watch the video. Approximately how long did it take you to play the final round in my first tournament? I think because I was narrating it as well, probably 3.5 to 4 hours, I would say. I could probably do it in. So here's the thing. I did one. I wonder if I can find that while I'm talking to you guys. So bear with me as I look through the video manager here, because I think I did. Can I search? Oh, I can search. So let's see. Let's go HMG. How many of those come up here? Not too many. Maybe I should search History Maker Golf. Or just... Oh boy. Felt that one coming on and couldn't hold back. All right, let's just search golf. Come on there, internet. Let's bring her up. All right. So let's see. A casual round. Stroke play foursome. So that was a stroke play foursome, was 1 hour and 43. Yeah, I would say you should probably devote 3 hours to it, just to be sure. The first couple holes are pretty quick, and then you get into the point where you're nesting either 4 or 6 groups. So you can either have, so my email is tenaciousstrat@gmail.com. Tenaciousstrat. I should probably put that in all my videos, but then I'll start getting some spam bots and things like that. But email me, and I'll see if I can forward you a link to Al Wilson's score sheet depository for History Maker, because he's got all sorts of score sheets. He's got neat History Maker baseball like mats that you could print out too for each stadium, with, you know, they aren't mats, but they're the papers that look like the templates for the mats and everything that have nice backdrops. But in that you can find the History Maker golf score sheets. There's one that's threesomes, one that's twosomes. So if you're threesomes, it's going to be 4 groups to make 12. If it's twosomes, it's 6 to make 12. Yada yada. Yeah, it takes probably 3 hours to do that final round. I think I had. I think it was 3.5 when you combine all the videos. Let's see. Let's see. I guess so the first one was 58. Let me see if I can find the other 2 here. Final round, part 2. So, I'll add it up: 58, 104, and 127. So, so that's 2.5, 3.5. But of course, I'm narrating the video as well. So, take that for what it's worth. There's some extra stuff that goes into talking it through, trying to explain why I'm doing certain things. So I'd say 3 hours is probably so it's not a quick enterprise by any means, but I think in the scope of a project, for instance, a single season replay of even one team, this kind of a project, it's basically the equivalent of a 3-game series, probably, in maybe 2-3 game series. something like that. So maybe if you played out a whole World Series, you would be pretty close to that amount of time, depending on how fast you play the baseball game. So I know that Espo is trying another game, a golf game, which is pretty cool. I like the idea that you play the shots, and I'm sure you can make some strategy choices with those as you go along. Maybe it, because I think in History Maker, one of the things that causes it to bog down just a touch compared to maybe other games is that you're kind of checking things off each time you go. You got to check, is it this, is it that, the other, and then you do your roll. Whereas some games, it might just be, you just make a quick check of the card. Oh, you need to roll this, boom, there. That's your score, or that's what happens on the hole. So I think it could still take some time, but I think it's great to be able to put that out here for people to see. I think Atba Golf as well is another one that hopefully myself, I get to invest in at some point down the road. Maybe even this Dice Nuts game, maybe it's something I will invest in at some point. But I appreciate him being mindful of the fact that I have History Maker going on here. I mean, it almost doesn't matter. I think the thing that really matters most is that we just enjoy it and get the most out of it we can. I know he said that he isn't probably as thrilled with the mechanism that History Maker uses as far as getting from first round to the beginning of the final round, and I think it's something that you have to deal with. You either have to play, I've thought about playing all 144 guys through 2 rounds and cutting it down. It's going to take some time if I do that. Maybe after I get a couple of tours in, I will look into that. At some point down the road, I'd also like to come up with a reel set based off of the mid to late 80s, which is when I really got into watching golf on television. I think I've said that before. No need to explain the system, but is there a mechanism within the game that assigns a final score for the golfers that made the cut but that fall? Let me bring this back up here because I can't see it, but it'll show up here. I think I know what you're talking about, and I'm going to tell you what I did. All right, let me see. Is there a mechanism within the game that assigns a final score for the golfers that made the cut but that fall out of contention? I have only played head-to-head. Yes, there is, and I think I did show it in that final video that I released. I hope I released it. They have another sheet on there that takes the B's through the D minus, and what you end up doing is you use their tournament rating to take them from a sort of a medium score for each of those levels, and it kind of breaks it out. So like a 1, you would add 1 to that score. Actually, it doesn't do this. It kind of does this. You add 1. If they're a 5, you add 5, and that's the way that it happens. So here's the other thing. So I'm again a little bit on the anal side. So there are players that missed the cut, and I wanted to have scores for them because I'd like to do scoring averages. So what I decided to do is went to my computer. I took I started with a D20, and I'm not real fond of that. I may have to pick up a D10. I would suggest a D10 probably is best for this. So what I did was I looked at the cut line from the real tournament. So the one I focused on was a couple of years, it was the previous year. The cut line, I think, was -2. I subtracted 2 because of if you recall, in the early going, I did sort of a target score. And to do that, I took, I made it 2 less than what that score was. So I think it went from 270 to 268. So I took the cut line and I took 2 off of that. So what I did from there was I took the D20, and again, I'm going to have to invest in a D10 for the next tournament. Just roll that, and from there, that's how many golfers. And I, based on the way that I formed the pile and the way I put them in there, actually, you know what? I think I did randomize them even from there. You could randomize it just to try and like make sure that you're. I feel like you have to randomize these things. It's going to screw somebody over, but anyway. So I rolled it, and so then for that first score, it would be that number. So if I rolled an 11, there'd be 11. It's not the best way to do it, but you can get some really big bunches in these like miss the cut groups. But again, I would probably go with a D10 in the future because you can also have some singletons. It's tough to really roll two D6s because then you lose that singleton one. The other trouble is that you don't get any zeros. You might have a score that isn't caught. I guess we're just gonna have to deal with that and decide that that's okay to not have that. So I just kept rolling the D20 and you know, setting guys to that score. So you know, it was like 280, or actually it wasn't 280 because it's under 200. It's like 140 something. And then let's say 140, and then I roll it again, then those are 141, then those are 142 as I roll again and keep going. So another thing that I can do with that, based on the score, so I have to compile these scores in a Google sheet. I compile it all in the same sheet as the tournament. So each tournament is going to have its own sheet, and I have a connection from a primary sheet to each of those, and what it does is it's going to suck out all of the information that I need. The rank, the number of rounds they played, and the way that I deduce the number of rounds they played is basically if it's under 200, it's a 2-round score. If it's above 200, it's a 4-round score. At some point maybe I'll try to get a little more fancy and see if I can figure out some DQs or some. Actually, if History Maker had sort of a rare play DQ kind of thing, that would be kind of neat. But the other thing so anyway, let me finish my thought. It pulls that out. It pulls out the scores. Pulls out. Hi, Jonathan. Pulls out the. So the money is assigned in the tournament sheet. And also the points. And so the way that Google Sheets are set up, you can't really have it. You can't have one sheet go and like scour another for information. Instead, what you have to do is you have to set it to look for one specific sheet, one specific cell. And setting it up the first time was a bit of a pain because you can't adjust those cells with a simple like fill down. Because it's in quotation marks, it won't use the cell name as a cell name. Instead, it's looking for, you know, so it treats it as almost like an alphanumeric. And so, hi, Scott. So I had to go in there literally with 160 some players and go like from B2, make it B3, then go down to the next one, B4 or B5. It's like one of the more tedious things that you will experience in life is going into a spreadsheet and manually like changing things. I wish I could pay someone in a third world country to do it, but I guess that may be a little insensitive there, but it is so tedious. But then once you finally get it done, then the nice part is that then you can do a find and replace of the URL for each of the sheets. To be able to then just like stock replace that with the next sheet. So like so then it compiles it all in the main sheet in a different tab, and then from there it can suck within the own sheet and do some analysis and all that stuff. So fun times. The Google Sheets are a lot like Excel. There are probably some limitations to those as well, but nice thing about Google Sheets is if you ever want to share them with somebody, it's a lot easier than like the OneDrive BS, or I guess you can do like Dropbox, but then it kind of goes away after a while. Google Sheets is a pretty nice collaboration tool. So anyway, I need to shut this off because I've just like taken up 35 minutes, and I said I wanted to do like a 5 or 10 minute video, but it's good to talk through these things. It's kind of eating into my Phillies. I need to play a couple games here, but any other questions, definitely. Pete says that he finds these periodic project overviews and how-tos to be informative and entertaining and a welcomed diversion from straight gameplays. Always fun to see how others are doing things. Yeah, I kind of felt like that's something that we should try to do as much as, or as often as is necessary. Maybe bi-weekly, just sort of like have a little confab chat session, whatever, that where, you know, we can ask each other questions, or you can ask me questions and I can tell you how I do it. It may not be the right way, or maybe you can tell me how you do it. Maybe it's a much better way. I still haven't gotten Scrabble tile holders, which is what Espo suggests for those leaderboard cards, and I think that is a that's a heck of an idea. But then I got to buy Scrabble, but you know, and double word scores are TT round table. Yeah, the tabletop round table. Round tabletop. It's not that funny. Sorry. Okay, I'm going to sign off, guys. Any other questions, just chuck them into that comment section below the video. I'd love to answer them. Want to try to be as entertaining as Pete thinks I am, or thinks these can be. I hope that I can live up to the standard that others set, but it can be a lot of fun. I wish I could do recordings in front of the computer. I probably could, but it's just it's in a general purpose location in the house, so to do that without annoying other family members is kind of tough. So we'll see. Maybe sometime I can figure that out. So have a good one, guys. Thanks for the questions. JVD, I haven't forgotten about you. So just but if we get where you know what I'm talking about, but just be sure to remind me if things get messed up. But thanks a lot, everybody. Have a great day. Enjoy your tabletop games, whatever they are. Just go and play them. So, John, thanks a lot. See you later, and God bless everybody.